Hello, everyone. I'm Doreen Shanaz, and I'm a Hopkins alum. I did a joint program with SAIS and Wharton and graduated in 1995 from the two schools. So, absolutely thrilled to be here today and to be speaking to all of you. I had a very unusual sort of background, I guess, in the sense that I really sort of straddled many different worlds. I grew up in Bangladesh, my childhood. So my first memories are of the war, which my book, The Defiant Optimist, starts with that. And I think for me, it really was the fact that, really growing up in a post-war country, in a war that devastated everything, 3 million people were killed. Um, it was for me, it was really this absorbing this whole notion of power inequality, right? A country which was very poor, devastated by war, and which frankly had very little control over how the country should be growing itself, right? So everyone had an opinion, all the donor countries, the big, multilateral, institutions, they all had an opinion on how the country should grow. And for me, even as a child, to absorb this, because again, the grown-ups would always talk about that, as well as sort of being a girl growing up in a very restrictive society, I always found there are a lot of parallels, in the two, in terms of, what it means to have power and what it means not to have power, and how that dynamics works out. So for me, that was very much how, I guess my mind was molded. And I think it became sort of my kind of passion to be able to see, okay, how can I play a role in creating a more equitable society? And I think, again, it just so happened I just witnessed a lot of history, like the all the turmoil in Bangladesh. Then my family moved to the Philippines, so I witnessed people power. What it means when 99% doesn't have power. Doesn't have the financial means. What it means for the country, for the society. And I think what was interesting when I came for college, which was another journey in itself, to the US at the age of 17, my first, I would say, introduction to the whole social activism, be combining with the financial power, was the anti-apartheid movement. So this is, again, a long time ago, back in 1985. And in all the US schools, I would say a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them, students were really rallying, for their universities to start divesting from South Africa. So I was part of that at Smith, where I went for my undergrad, and it was brilliant. For me, the excitement of being able to make a social change, very important social change to happen, through the financial, through pressure to make it happen through the financial system, for me was like eye-opening, so I do think that, sort of a life journey of being able to absorb, be a part of, and witness sort of these situations and inequality, and I think really propelled me to kind of say, okay, how do I bring the two worlds, the world of inequality, the world of injustice, with the world of finance, right? And how do I kind of combine the two? And I think going to SAIS and Wharton really allowed me to bring these two worlds together, very, very effectively. And I always say, I joke with my friends, especially SAIS friends, that, I am kind of living my SAIS Wharton degree, with the work that I do and what I have had done in my career. So, I'm indeed very fortunate. The reality is, I mean, and I have a chapter in the book when I was a professor at the National University of Singapore, and I start that chapter by saying how I used to introduce myself, in the class, that I've been an entrepreneur, a banker, media executive, and the course I'm teaching is on social change and development, through finance, and you would think, why I'm here teaching in a school of public policy, and the answer is because many of you in this audience can actually make an entrepreneur's life, easier or very miserable. So I do think that the reality is a place like SAIS is shaping the minds of folks who are going and joining a lot of these, donor organizations, a lot of the foundations. And they have the ability now to really step back and say, okay, how can we think about development not as something I think what's good for this group and I will give that based on my opinion, but really sort of, switching that equation and saying, you know, and asking the group, what do you want? Is this something that is something sustainable? If I actually come in with something, can that be leveraged by private sector, some other investment? So I come in and give you $100. Can you get in the market based on that, $1,000? Because maybe what I give you is seen as building the foundation, or what I give you is seen as, de-risking, like your operation. So I do think that we're in the times where there is so much of still inequality and need, right? You still have over, something crazy, like 2 billion people of the planet still living under $1.25 a day. And on the flip side, we have about like 600 billionaires who own their wealth is more than the wealth of 4.5 billion people's wealth put together. So it's just like insane, right? So the reality is, while I think there has been a general sort of the whole tide has lifted in terms of the economic growth, in all the countries, but there also has created a lot of also inequality. The Gini coefficient is just supremely high for almost all the countries. So I do think that this is where the SAIS graduates have a lot of power. They're going in, most of them again, into public policy and public service. And this is an incredible service to be able to sort of say, how do I take my power that I have and leverage it, right? Leverage it so that I can kind of open up, the other sectors, so that I can actually get the financial sector to value the social impact, and the environmental impact. And I think this is why impact investing has really sort of taken on. And I would say in some ways, interestingly, I sort of really straddle so many different worlds, as we were talking about it earlier on. I do think impact investing has taken on much more in Asia, than it has over here. I mean, if you think about it, they're saying that, the whole impact investing is close to $1 trillion. Yes, but that's like, I think very broadly, they're counting a lot of things. But if you really sort of say, okay, to the last mile, the changes that are happening, I think most of that is happening in Asia, and to a lesser extent in Africa. So I do think that we are seeing this shift slowly happening, with the governments sort of kind of seeing that they can get more mileage for their money, in terms of sort of being able to say, okay, if we put this in, will private sector come in, and how will that happen? And what role does innovative finance play on this? So, it's all good stuff. And I think, SAIS is well positioned to play a role in this. Well, I think, again, my journey was not an easy one. And I think, and that's what I talk about in the book. The reality is, yes, now I'm in a position to share all this with you, and it's wonderful, but it has been very, very tough, in terms of sort of being a woman and a woman of color, to be able to kind of go and really change things, to be able to, influence people to think differently. And I think what I have done over the course of my career is all the rejections, I've taken it as a learning and saying, okay, how can I do it differently next time around? To the point now from my current company, Impact Investment Exchange, we have now put out in the market over $300 million of investments, and very much linked to the last mile, impacting over, 100 million lives. And I think across, 53 countries. And what's really remarkable about all this is we have never had a single loss. So absolutely zero loss. And I always like to emphasize that because, again, we are putting a lot of emphasis, on the impact side. So I think the journey as we had done this, for me, it really was being able to create an ecosystem around me that really allowed me to bring in different stakeholders, So we have a whole education arm, IX Institute, which would educate people who traditionally won't even think that they would play a role in this, like, say, lawyers and accountants, your researchers. So we had all these people basically going through this, where coming out, they have a role to play, in our fintech platform, impact measurement platform, or very importantly, these bonds that we issue in the market. So we issue these bonds, Women's Livelihood Bond. We have now put 5 of them in the market. The 6th one is in the process of now going out. And that in itself, I mean, with the bond alone, we put out $128 million, plus another 100 million going out in the next couple of months. And I think that really has shown how as I always proudly like to say, connecting sort of literally the back street to Wall Street, the back street, the women, in underserved communities. And we have created kind of these sophisticated instruments that allows for these investors to invest in this. And again, the money is being lent out, to the last mile women where it's creating livelihood. These women are paying it back so the investors can get paid back. So I always say what we have created is literally a whole new table where everyone has a chair. It's not bringing our folding chair and trying to kind of squeeze our way into, how we are going to be basically valued. But it really kind of saying, there's a whole new parallel system which we were able to, link. The financial system is there. I always say finance is not good or bad. It's how we use it. And we have been, very effective in being able to use it effectively. Well, defiant optimist really means that when you are sort of leading your life for something bigger, and which means that you have to have the audacity to question a system, which is not working for everyone. And basically the courage to be able to stand up to that and make the changes happen. And I would say the optimism to be, able to carry on when you keep on hearing no. This is applicable for anything you do, right? So it doesn't have to be just the financial market. That's happened to be my journey. But I really feel that for us, I think in life, it is a more fulfilling life if we are actually trying to do something to be more inclusive, and that frankly is the overarching theme of the book, that, you have to be sort of inclusive in terms of being able to really change a system and make it work, for more than that 1%. Also, I want everyone to kind of step back and say, okay, what is their role in this bigger universe, and really be thinking about that. And as they're thinking about it, I would like to welcome them to this whole new movement that we have started, and the US government is actually part of it, which is called the Orange Movement. So orange is the color of Sustainable Development Goal 5, which is for gender equality. So for women, girls, and gender minorities. So what we are doing is we have taken this on and created a whole, as they call in the finance market, asset class, right? You have, like you heard of green bonds. So we are now have created orange bonds. So basically where, again, we are saying you can't have green without orange. So basically, it's gender equality and climate action, coming together. And it has really taken off. And I would really encourage people to Google it, go in there. If you Google Orange Bond, it'll come up, and sign a pledge. We have over 75,000 people who have signed it. The governments are embracing it. Governments like Indonesia who have done, green bonds over $1 billion. They're now turning it into orange. The Australian government, the Turkish government, a number of private sector companies like IKEA. So I do encourage people to kind of understand that all of us have a role to play in the financial system and to make it inclusive. So, we have all embraced green, and we got some beating around for greenwashing and all that, that some people were doing. But in this case, it really is about verification in the last mile and making sure we have gender equality, in this world and in the financial system. So I would encourage everyone to go and sign the pledge and really think how you can start your journey to be a defiant optimist. Buy the book, reach out to me, The Defiant Optimist, and you can reach out to me on defiantoptimist.com. And I hope you enjoy it. And I look forward to connecting with many of you.